Bergen Community College presents Bergen Bulldog Radio on FiOS Channel 26. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Bergen Community College.
Welcome to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show, here on the YouTube Bergen Bulldog Radio channel, and on Torch TV, FiOS Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey. I'm your host for this week, Nate Enriquez, happy to be here with you guys. The Bergen Bulldog Podcast Show is a weekly compilation produced by the students of the podcasting class on the Paramus campus of Bergen Community College. Each week, we'll feature several podcasts created and produced by Bulldog Radio students. The topics vary, and we hope you'll find them informative and entertaining. This week's program features the third episodes from 5 podcasting students from the spring 2026 semester. So let's get on with the show.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Gonzalez, and I'm here bringing you another episode of Food for Thought. And today, we're going to kind of connect more on a more personal basis, And I have a special guest, a good friend of mine that's also been on a nutrition journey. Please welcome Johan Bacody.
Hey, how you guys doing? My name is Johan Bacody, and I've also been on a nutrition journey myself. And, it's very eye-opening.
Johan, what made you, kind of give your backstory of, where you started from and, why you wanted to eat a bit healthier.
Oh, man. Where should I start? Okay, so I'm going to narrow it down for y'all. So, yeah, man, pretty much I would say throughout my whole childhood, I was pretty healthy, lean. I didn't grow up as, an obese kid. But, the obesity didn't really start until my early teen years. But then I always lost the weight back. So, pretty much my weight loss journey has always been on and off during my teen years, where I would lose weight, then gain it back, then lose it again, and then gain a little back. So, but, as time went on, the older you get, your appetite starts to grow a little bit.
Yeah,
so
it changes more. You kind of get more selective of what you eat.
And plus, we're young men, so we're going to want to eat.
Absolutely.
So, with me at this time, I didn't think I was too bad because overall I kind of looked kind of buff. So when people would go up to me, they'd be like, man, you're in pretty good shape, or you're pretty buff. I like that. So I didn't think it was nothing big about it. And it wasn't until, I remember my doctor has said, yeah, you're pre-diabetic. You might want to lose some weight. And at the time, I didn't really want to hear it.
How did it feel when you first got hit with the news of it? Did it kind of make your heart sting or something? Did it give you that embarrassment feeling? Because when I was big and I had my first reality check, when I got stuck on a roller coaster, I tried to get on a roller coaster and they couldn't lock me in. That's one of the most embarrassing feelings ever. That was my reality check, and it really hurt me that day. So how did it make you feel when the doctor told you something super kind of blunt, if you're telling me, to be honest?
Well, as I was going to state, honestly, when I first heard it, it did sting a little. It did sting a little, but I didn't really take it too serious, or at the time I'm kind of just it did sting a little bit where I'm like, damn, really? And I'm like, no, can't be. Nah, I'm good. It's nothing that crazy. And then as time went on, but it did sting in the back of my mind. It did sting because at the same time too, I was kind of coping with it instead of actually, as in other terms, I was kind of just telling myself, oh, nah, it's nothing. That's just the doctor, but that's that. But it started to hit, and I'm going to make this short. It started to hit when I looked at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, I look good. I have good hair, and I have good teeth, and I dress nice, but something's missing. And then I saw my bloated stomach, my bloated face, where I'm like, yeah, the doctor's right. I really need to lose some weight. So more of in my aspect, it was kind of looks-wise, and then, too, I want to get healthier because then again, too, growing up as a kid, I was pretty healthy. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a big humbling experience, dude. And I think it's there comes a point where no one wants to actually admit they're, unhealthy or their diet isn't good because when I was also eating very unhealthy, I would get reality checks from my grandma or something. They'd be like, you might want to start eating better. I'm like, oh, it is what it is. I'll be fine. I'm only when I was like 16 at this time. I'm only 16. I'm only 16. I'm only like a young kid. I have all the time in the world. But you know what the problem is too is that like we think we have all this time, right? But if you're eating unhealthy, you're gonna lower your lifespan. You know,
That's
you're
a
not gonna
fact.
live as long. You don't exercise, take care of yourself. You're gonna have a lot of problems by the time you're 30. Being 30 years old having heart problems is ridiculously young.
Who
Like,
wants that?
Not me. And I think for both of us, it was kind of leading to that point. And I think that
Right.
could be like a motivation to like want to eat healthier. Like, let's be honest. What foods were you like eating when you were unhealthy?
Ooh, perfect question. So keep in mind, this was during COVID. So a lot of, even though this is not an excuse, but a lot of people were eating. Let's be real.
Yep, me too.
I can make a laundry list. And I'm gonna say this before. I didn't think I was eating that much food until I started cutting off a lot of foods, or actually when I started to look back at a lot of things.
Here's the
So,
thing, right? And I don't mean to cut you off, but
go
I
ahead.
have to resonate with that point because when I was also eating a lot during COVID, same time as you, I did not think I was eating that much food. I thought I was eating too little, if anything. I thought I
Right.
was eating not oh big deal. I ate Chick-fil-A like 3 times a week, which is not really that good to eat that many times a week. That's not good for you at all. You know, eating fruit snacks like running through like a pack of 10 gummies like a day. Like I was eating a lot, and you don't think it, but as time goes on and you see how you look, how you feel, it tends to really does sting after a while.
Like I can tell you, like I was eating Popeyes,
Popeyes.
McDonald's. What else? Other fast foods. Like I maybe ate a little Wendy's here and there.
Oh yeah. And
then
Wendy's fries are great too.
and then which I still eat, but now it's a lot more. But now it's a lot more moderation. But
That's gonna go to my next
I
point.
ate a lot of Chinese food.
Oh yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you about the Chinese food. I would every time when I got Chinese food, I drunk it with Pepsi soda.
Yep.
I had that with soda, so that's really spiked it up.
Yeah, that's just like double like unhealthy right there. And that's to my next point too is that
Oh, and one more thing,
Yep.
too. Also, every weekend we also had a lot of Dunkin' Donuts.
oh yeah. Yeah, no, I would definitely eat unhealthy, like on the weekend for sure. A nice, easy excuse. But that definitely gets to my next point. When it comes to, so think when you start, it's always good to slowly cut things down and out. Moderation is very important. I think I'm not telling you to cut everything out, and we still like moderate things. But we prioritize healthier foods, but if you can cut it out, you should. But ideally, that's not realistic for a lot of people. So cutting it down is very important. So Johan, explain to the people and explain to me, how did you start to cut things down slowly but surely so you could lose weight and get to a healthier like body?
Well, it actually kind of happened naturally, I guess, because I guess, you know, and I mean naturally because my mom started to not buy certain foods. And it's like it kind of naturally caused me to not want as much. And then, too, my life became a lot more busier. So I couldn't force myself to eat a lot of food. So it started narrowing down naturally. And then, too, I never stopped really eating healthy. That's hence why I didn't go over 300 pounds, because I always still kept somewhat of a healthy lifestyle. So I was able to somewhat bounce back kind of quick. And I actually was to, lower foods, like where it's like, okay, if I ate like a donut, okay, I would eat that donut. Now this may be a little strict, but for me, I would start eating my donut like I would get a donut like every other month. To then where if I do eat a donut, it kind of came to the point to where I was sick of sweets because I didn't like how I felt after I ate the sweets.
Yeah, that's a big thing too.
And don't get it twisted, I still have my sweet tooth. I still here and there, not as often, but I might have a donut or a milkshake here and there. But having it all the time, it started to, I started to feel lethargic, tired,
Yep.
So, I just thought about it. I thought about it like this. Okay, these foods, if I eat them, they're going to just make me tired. So let me just stay away from that. Or if I do eat a certain food, I walk it off. So it's like I keep myself busy. That's hence why, too, I was able to cut down certain foods because I just did different things and I tried healthier alternatives to those said foods, which naturally fooled me quicker, so I just fell back on them.
Yeah, and that brings me to the other point of you being tired, lethargic, slower when you ate these foods. Guys, I broke this down in the first and even the second episode of the Food for Thought series about how these eating unhealthy can really mess you up and make you feel slower, more sluggish. Johan is a lot of evidence of that because his point proven, like how he felt slower and lethargic. This is serious. I'm not over here just spouting things because I'm bored. You know, I'm just trying to advocate some honest truths about what I've experienced and what other people, that's why I bring Johan onto this show, of what he's experienced to help you guys try to slowly cut things down more.
And to give some proof, I was at one point, I was at 241 pounds. Now I believe I'm down to 223. I'm in that 220 range now. Probably even more because I haven't checked the scale, but I've known. But I went from being 241 to the 220 range.
Right. Now that's very inspirational, you know. And tell me, what food did you cut? Like kind of like cut out more. Like what did you add in? Like what foods did you start adding into your diet? Like when you were trying to lose weight and get yourself healthier.
Okay, gotcha. So apples, fruits,
Apples, yeah, fruits very important.
and I also started recently actually making my own eggs. So because before I would buy bacon, egg, and cheeses from my deli, but once I'm like, excuse me, because I want to save money, I wanted to make my own stuff. So I said, let me make my own bacon, egg, and cheese. And plus, at least I'll know what I'm putting in the bacon, egg, and cheese in. It's not much. It's pretty much organic. I don't put much in it. It's pretty much natural. So I put that. So, I started starting to make my own food. And what also did I put in? I am starting to eat more veggies and baked chicken. So yeah, those are the foods. And I'm drinking a lot more water. I don't drink soda really anymore. Like if I do drink a soda, it's literally every other 3 months. Maybe like on a birthday. But other than that,
Like a special occasion.
or a special occasion. Because here's the thing too. I will say this, and I am being truly honest. Here and there, I may drink an energy drink like a Monster. So I just said, okay, if I'm gonna drink that, and I know, and it's not the best. Like I said,
It's not.
it's not the best. But I don't drink it every day. So here and there, I'll drink it for like, a workout or to keep myself up.
Yep.
But the thing is this. I said, listen, if I'm gonna drink a Monster here and there, I'll cut out the soda and I strictly drink water. So so to bring back Nick's point about eating things in moderation, that's kind of my moderation, and it's not ideal, but I'm being authentic to everybody because I'm not gonna sit there and be like, hey, I'm the cleanest eater in the world, because I'm not perfect.
Neither am I.
I relapse. But if you're gonna do such things, at least balance it out with healthy. Because like what I said, if I'm gonna at least want to enjoy a Monster, then I don't enjoy soda. So let's say if it was vice versa. If I was gonna drink a soda, I would, cut off all the Monsters, and I would make sure I drink plenty of water, which is what I do. So that's how you can go about things. Now, if you're a person where you want to be strict and just go full on, cut out every sugar and go full on natural, props to you. But for the average person, it might take them a little time for them to fully be like, all right, I'm sick of all these sweets. I'm strictly going there. So it's a process for some people.
Absolutely. And to go back to one of your points, you mentioned that you went from buying egg sandwiches at a deli to cooking them at home. I've also kind of expressed this on my previous episodes about that home cooked meals are better than like buying at a deli, because here's the problem with delis, right? Yes, an egg sandwich is ideally good for you, but we don't know truly what they're putting in there. And that's not something you can control. When you cook your own meals, ideally you put less ingredients in there. You know exactly what you're doing, what you want in there, what you don't want in there. And that is why home cooked meals are better.
Yeah, Nick is spot on with that, because it's like with these restaurants, they put a lot of processed food.
Yep.
They put a lot of extra grease because grease is not good.
No, not at all.
So it's like, when it comes to food, you want to be aware of what you're putting into your body. Cause like from our last podcast that me and Nick did, We were talking about Red 40 and, all the other bad things
Yep.
that are in foods that people aren't aware of. So it's important to really know what you're eating. If you can at least know that and you can at least track your food, because here's the thing. I'm not the best when it comes to tracking food, but I at least have a aware knowledge of what's being put in it, so I can somewhat better upset, better, what's the upset? Oh.
Kind of like understand. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I understand where you're going
Assess,
from.
better assess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And obviously this is just an example of many others of why improving your health is super important. Watching what you eat and trying to add in healthier foods. So, yo, I'm Cody. I really do appreciate your time today. Thank you for coming on to this episode. I'm Nick Gonzalez, and that is Food for Thought. We'll see you on the next episode.
Peace.
Take care.
April is National Volunteer Month, a time to recognize the incredible impact volunteers make throughout Bergen County. Organizations like Bergen Volunteers are celebrating more than 100 individuals who give their time to support others through programs like CHORE, which provides home repairs for seniors, CHEER, which offers companionship and support to seniors, and VITA, which delivers free tax assistance to families in need. Volunteer membership is also making a difference. SCORE Northeast New Jersey recognizes dedicated mentors who help support more than 1,000 entrepreneurs in the past year, guiding small businesses and strengthening the local economy. Community organizations are also coming together to give back. Children's Aid and Family Services partners with local groups on community drives that support families and children throughout the county. During National Volunteer Week, April 21st through the 27th, residents are encouraged to take part in service opportunities, including community projects and Earth Day activities. This April, consider making a difference in your community. Volunteer your time, share your skills, and help build a stronger Bergen County.
You're listening to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show, here on YouTube and Files Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey. And now, back to the show.
Hello, my name is Justin Gonzalez, and welcome back to Orthodox Change of Mind. On last week's episode, we talked about scripture, tradition, interpreting scripture through the lens of the history of the church. And for this episode, I was going to say that I wanted to talk more about the development of the early church and one of the other Protestant solas. But this time around, in this time of year is the most important week of Christian history, known as Holy Week. And I wanted to take this episode to just slow down and talk about Holy Week and talk about, again, the most important week in Christian history, which describes Jesus coming into Jerusalem, the couple of days that he spent there, events such as the supper, the Last Supper, Jesus's crucifixion, and ultimately his resurrection. So Orthodox, interestingly enough, last week was for Catholics and Protestants. That was their Holy Week. But since Orthodox Christianity runs on a different calendar, what was Resurrection Sunday for Catholics and Protestants was Palm Sunday for Orthodox Christians. And so I just wanted to be able to share what I'm learning as a former Protestant inquiring in Orthodoxy. And for Orthodox Christians, it's not just a week of remembrance, but a look and a way to participate actively in the lifestyle and the life and moments of Jesus and his disciples in leading up to the resurrection. It's practiced by billions of Christians, even though, like we talked about in the earlier episodes, how there's only about a couple of million Orthodox Christians here in the United States. But out in the rest of the world, out in the East and in Europe as well, it is practiced by billions and billions of Orthodox Christians all over the world, and leads to, as we said earlier in the episode, something known as Pascha, or what we here in America would understand as Easter, which is the resurrection. How this is a journey from Christ's entrance into Jerusalem, the betrayal that he suffered from even one of his own disciples, the suffering that he went through on the cross, and the ultimate victory that he ends up having over sin and death, and that is for our salvation. What makes this Holy Week unique and special compared to all the other weeks in the year is not only just what we're remembering, but what we get to experience as Christians. And that, yes, there are a lot of symbols that occur in the Holy Week, but that it is not something that is in and of itself solely symbolic, but that is something that we get to be a part of. Services during the Holy Week are long, they are frequent, and they are deeply poetic, filled with ancient tradition and ancient stories of the things that occurred during those times. So, like I was saying before, this is not something that is just remembered or seen, but something that is participated in all around the world. There are things such as scripture readings, hymns, incense in the church, iconography, or otherwise known as paintings and drawings of saints and angels and even Christ himself all over the church that help inspire the faith of believers to just engage them in this process of Christ's life. The week is structured around some of the daily themes of Christ's final days before his crucifixion. And the first day that we run into with that is Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday is the first day that Jesus enters into Jerusalem as a king. It's most known for or most remembered by in the historical church context, palms that are given. The reason it is actually called Palm Sunday is because when Jesus was entering into Jerusalem, he entered on a donkey. And what people did was they started to take off their jackets and take off their cloaks, and also pick palm branches off of trees and lay them on the ground for the donkey to walk over as Jesus was entering. While people shouted Hosanna in the highest, or calling out to Jesus as a king, because that was a fulfillment of prophecy that was written years and years before that he entered, where it talks about blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord, and people understanding Jesus coming into Jerusalem as a Messiah. And while that was incredible and people were celebrating, except for the religious leaders at the time, it did come with underlying tension, and the fact that Jesus fully understood that the same people who were welcoming him into the city were the same ones who were going to be soon rejecting him and shouting, crucify him, during his trial. Yes. So that rolls into the Monday, which in the Orthodox faith is known as Holy Monday. So one of the main parables told on Holy Monday was the parable of the fig tree, which is a judgment on fruitlessness. And the story goes, to my recollection, the story goes that Jesus sees a fig tree on the side of the road, and it has leaves in proper time, but bears no fruit. And Jesus ends up cursing the tree, and when his disciples ask him why, the moral of that story is that he explains to them that just having the appearance of a healthy tree is deceptive if you don't have any fruit, and that Jesus is calling for spiritual readiness and repentance amongst those who would believe and follow him. On Holy Tuesday, we have the parable of 10 virgins, a parable about 10 virgins where half of them were prepared, had their lamps prepared for a wedding while they were walking in the night, and the other half didn't. And then, as soon as the bridegroom came, the virgins who had the oil ready in their lamps were let into the wedding feast, but the ones who were not ready needed to run into town, and they missed their opportunity to enter into the wedding. This parable is spoken on Holy Tuesday as a reminder of being watchful, always being ready, and always staying focused on the things of God during this time. On Holy Wednesday, there was a woman who we talk about, a woman who anointed Christ with expensive perfume, and the symbolic meaning for that was that and it's incredible because the symbolic meaning in that was that at the same time, a woman who was seen as like a sinful woman anointing Jesus for ultimately his burial is contrasted with the fact that Judas, the person, one of Jesus's disciples who would soon betray him, was there in the same room, saying that they could have used that money, the perfume was worth, to give to the homeless or give to people in need. And so it was a good contrast. It's a good day to remember that contrast that we have between genuine repentance and fake righteousness, or the appearance, like we talked about before with the fig tree, the appearance of righteousness without any real fruit at all. For Holy Thursday, otherwise known as the Mystical Supper, we remember the Last Supper, the institution of the Eucharist, and the washing of the disciples' feet. Also, we remember the beginning of Christ's passion, or what he had to endure while being taken away to be crucified. The Last Supper is one of the most important events in all of Scripture and all of church tradition. It's where we learn how to it's where Jesus has established the communion with his disciples, making the promise of the new covenant, and where things like he said, oh, this is my body and this is my blood, are established, and where he establishes himself as a new covenant for the people, a new promise for the people, a way of salvation for the people before he's ultimately taken away. Also in this moment, Jesus washes his disciples' feet. It points to the fact that, like it says in another verse of Scripture, that the greatest among you, when his disciples were asking, who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, or who will be the greatest out of all the disciples, Jesus talks about the fact that the greatest among you will be the servant of all. And so Jesus, the Son of God, comes down as a man, and even though he is deserving of all glory, honor, worship, and praise, and comes to serve, like I said, like the scripture verse says, that he came to serve, not to be served, which sets an example for us as his believers, as his disciples, to follow, which is that to be great in his kingdom, we're called to be servants of all who are around us. On Holy Thursday, we also remember the beginning of his passions, where after the supper, Jesus is found praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, crying and calling desperately out to God the Father, because he understands what he's about to endure for the salvation of humanity. Around that time, around Holy Thursday, it is a time of deep and intimate passion and a bit of sadness as well, where as Orthodox Christians, as we begin to experience these things, we put ourselves into a position where we are walking with Christ, praying, fasting, remembering what he's going through, or what he's doing as we go throughout the week. And one of the key ideas of that day is that Christ gives himself that before he is ultimately betrayed. And then onto the day after that, which would lead into that, which is Holy Friday, otherwise known as amongst Protestants and Catholics and other Christians alike, Good Friday. This day is a sad day because on Good Friday or Holy Friday, we remember the trial, suffering, and crucifixion of Christ, and ultimately his death. So after they had that dinner, after they had that supper, and Christ goes to the garden to pray, he ends up getting captured because of his disciple Judas, who ended up betraying him to the religious leaders at the time, who were in which they took him away and put him on trial. And it's described in the Gospels that many people brought false accusations against him and that they didn't line up too well, but that ultimately they ended up sentencing him into the crucifixion. And then in between that, and then ultimately after his crucifixion, he died, was buried, and finally into that ultimate day of resurrection, which is the Sunday, which is the most important day of all Christian history, which is the day that Jesus rises from the grave and opens that door for all believers to be saved. Again, Holy Week is not just something that Orthodox Christians observe. It's something they step into, walking with Christ from the gates of Jerusalem to the empty tomb. This has been Orthodox Change of Mind. My name is Justin Gonzalez, and again, thank you for listening.
Did you know 1 in 3 young people have experienced cyberbullying, and 70% of students say they've seen it happen online? Words can hurt. Behind every screen is a real person facing real emotions. Cyberbullying doesn't just stop after you hit send. It lingers, it scars. Don't stand by in silence. Speak up. Cyberbullying can lead to anxiety, depression, and even thoughts of self-harm. It's not just words on a screen. It's real pain. Together, we can create a safer online world. Your words matter. Use them to lift, not to tear down. Reach out and make the online world safer for everyone. Check out cyberbullying.org for more information now.
You're listening to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show, here on the Bergen Bulldog Radio YouTube channel and on Torch TV, Files Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey. And now, back to the show.
Welcome to the third installment of Super Game Analysis. My name is Elliot, and before we begin, I'd just like to mention that I watched the Super Mario Galaxy movie on Saturday. And I'm just saying, I'm not going to spoil anything. Please watch it. I thought it was fantastic, and whether you've watched it or not, I hope you think the same. But anyways, today we are going to be talking about a game that I played a lot in my childhood, Super Paper Mario. I feel like it's a very underrated game personally, but just a lot of people don't really know about it, I feel, and the fandom's very small. A little bit about the game is that it came out on April 9th of 2007, and as of recording this, it is April 9th, which means it is its 19th anniversary today, which I think is fantastic. A little bit about the game itself, plot-wise, is Princess Peach is kidnapped at first. They think it's Bowser, because of course it's Bowser, but you turn around and realize it wasn't him, and it's actually these new villains, the most prominent one being Count Bleck. He reveals that he has taken Princess Peach and is going to take everyone else as well to use them to unlock what's called the Chaos Heart, which is going to unleash dark power and destroy the world, which is pretty much his objective. And Mario is the only one left who has to defeat this evil alongside the little rainbow butterfly that went out to seek him. And throughout the game, you go to the hub world known as Flipside, and you meet with Merlin, who's just a little. He's basically the Toadsworth equivalent in this Paper Mario game. He just tells you tips and helps the story progress for the most part. But in the actual story itself, you go through 8-ish different worlds, each of them representing one of the pure hearts, and each one is a completely different theme. There is a generic grass world. There's a desert kind of ancient looking place. There's literal outer space, which I'll get into that later, but it was my least favorite of the worlds in that game. And another place you can go is the Void. So it's very different from other Mario games that have released, definitely not only within that year bracket, but also just in general at that point. I feel like Paper Marios obviously have completely different plots than expected, and I think that's really awesome. A lot of people praise, I think, Thousand Year Door, for stuff like that, and I honestly never played Thousand Year Door. I think my first was actually Super Paper Mario, and that's just why it holds something like close to me personally, because that's what I grew up with. And this is the story that has shaped like even my own kind of things that have nothing to do with like Super Paper Mario, has shaped like inspiration for stuff like that as well. And I just want to talk a little bit about as well how exactly was the game. So when I was younger, I struggled playing games, of course, like I did with Galaxy, and this game was no different. I think I got stuck on the first chapter and couldn't progress because I had no idea what I was doing or where to go. Because sometimes, since there's dialogue in this game, you can miss things if you're not actively reading the dialogue. And at the time, I was just kind of like clicking the buttons like, come on, I want to play. I want to move around as Mario. And I completely miss crucial information that is needed to actually play the game and progress with the story. So I'm just walking around Flipside aimlessly like, what do I do with this heart I just collected? Because at the end of each chapter, you collect one of the pure hearts, usually. The music for the game was pretty good too. It's not like Galaxy kind of music, but definitely fit each and every like theme for every world. Which, speaking of, I want to give a little tidbit about those worlds as well, and kind of just my thoughts on them for the most part. But before I do that, I do want to talk about the original characters real quick. Obviously, Count Bleck, the evil guy, and his minions, which would be this big guy, O'Chunks. He's like kind of like a Viking in a way, but he's like huge and kind of cuckoo. There's Mimi, who is this bratty little green shapeshifter who can kind of turn into this spider creature, which scared me at first because I was like, spider creature, and I don't really like spiders. So, she's not my favorite. There is Dimentio, who is this mystical jester guy who is obviously very mysterious, but also, I think, causes the most chaos out of all of the villains in general. And there is Nastasia, who is like the right-hand woman, per se, of Count Bleck, but honestly, I feel like she doesn't really do much other than have stuff for plot relevance. We don't fight Nastasia ever. She's just kind of for the sake of the story, I think. And there is another villain that pops up later, but I'm going to talk about that when I talk about the worlds. Speaking of which, Lineland is the first world that you encounter in Super Paper Mario. It is generic Sonic Green Hill Zone 1-1. There really is nothing special about Lineland like 1-1. It's just Greenland, you go to talk to this one guy, and he's like, hey, bring me this, and I'll let you proceed. And you do that. Then from then on, it's you go travel to the first quote-unquote desert area where you kind of just do little quests to progress to the actual area where you meet one of the other characters. I feel like her story's not that important, considering the fact literally makes fun of her for it, where Mario falls asleep and it's just a bunch of blah blah dialogue that nobody reads and can't read because it goes by so fast. But after that is number 2, which is Gloam Valley. A lot of it, despite being like, oh, it's a swampy kind of place, a lot of it is spent inside of the character Merlee. I don't know if she's related to Merlin or not. I never really looked into that. But you spend a lot of time in Merlee's mansion, which it's kind of funny because that's where I believe you first, as Mario, meet Mimi. And you can see she's like a brat and she really likes money. So because you didn't mean to break a vase that was just in the middle of nowhere, you now owe her like 1 million rubies. Coins don't work in this game. You need rubies. They do work in this game, but just for the specific chapter they don't. And you have to pay off your debt to escape the mansion, essentially. No, you'd think mansion. Luigi's not in this part, unfortunately. Then we move on to the Bitlands, where it's pretty much just accentuating on like pixels and stuff. There's this creepy guy, Francis, who really likes taking pictures of butterflies for some reason, but he's like weird about it. I don't know why, but that's mostly what I remember about Bitlands. Just the one guy that stood out. You do meet Bowser here. I believe you meet Peach in... I don't remember where you meet Peach, but you've met Peach at this point, and I can't remember where you meet her. But you meet Bowser in the Bitlands, and I don't know if you can play with him yet. I forgot. But regardless, you move on to Outer Space. Outer Space I did not like because it was a lot of backtracking. There were spaces that you would have no idea that they existed, and it's just annoying to me because it's like I'm backtracking to different places. Where am I going? There's no signs in this game. Unless you particularly make sure to read every single line of dialogue, you will get lost. And I got lost because I did not do that. Afterwards, at least, we go to land of the Kragnons. They're basically like cavemen for the most part. And they have a problem with these flower creatures because I guess they're polluting the water. Not the flower people, the Kragnons. And the flower people are mad at them because they're polluting the water. So you have to deal with that situation. Which leads us to the Samur Kingdom, which is quickly invalidated by the fact that, hey, guess what? The void has now consumed this kingdom. And you enter, like, blank white space because of it. And you really don't get to see much of the Samur Kingdom, which is why it's very, like, for me, it's, like, very quick. I don't remember anything about it. Later, after you finish the game, you can go back. But, I personally don't see a point just because it's very tedious. You go back and fight a bunch of different samurai. And you do get something at the end, I think, but it's just a card from what I remember, so I didn't see it as worth it, so I didn't even bother. Second to last place is the Underwhere, WHERE. But the thing is, it's that, hey, look over there. They're like, look under there. It's one of those jokes. It's because it's called the Underwear and the Over There. I'm serious. I'm 99% sure it's supposed to be one of those jokes. But aside from the fact that it's a funny haha, it actually looks very nice. And like the underwear is like this is basically like the underworld. And then the Over There is like Olympus, sort of. And I do like that they incorporated these two places for like one chapter. I find that very interesting, and how they did it was actually very well done. But I feel like they could have been their own separate things, even though they didn't do that. Finally, we end up at Castle Black, where you are supposed to travel through Count Black's Void Castle to find him and fight him in order to use the pure hearts you've collected for every world to defeat him, who he still has the Chaos Heart. So if you defeat him, you defeat the Chaos Heart. There is a plot twist that I will not tell you about because I'm trying not to be very spoilery with the games I review, just because I want to just give my initial experience without the spoilers. So maybe I could encourage to, like, wow, this kind of sounds interesting. I want to know more about this. Like, what he said was kind of vague. I want to go in and kind of do it for myself and play the game myself, which is why I'm kind of just like giving basic overviews of each chapter, each world, because I want the stuff that's really important and like plot twists and stuff to be surprising, you know, in the hopes that anyone listening will actually go out and play these games themselves. But yeah, speaking of which, I keep saying that. I don't want to spoil the ending, so I'm not going to say much else about Castle Black for now. But I will warn you that there is this fun thing called the Pit of 100 Trials. If you have not played through the game at least once, and if you feel like you know how to play the game, but don't have like, oh yeah, I could do this super easily, please do not go into the Pit of 100 Trials blinded like I did. It's not fun. You don't want to do it. It's a gauntlet, basically. And if you don't have the items for it, you are basically just walking into a death trap. I learned that the hard way and game overed because of it. So, yeah. But Super Paper Mario really is a fantastic game if you do ever get the chance to play it. And I might replay it myself after this, I'm not gonna lie, because, you know, why not? It's a great game, and I love it a lot, and it's inspired me throughout the years. So I hope my vagueness will inspire you to give it a try as well. And next time I talk will be the last game I review, actually. But I hope you stay tuned for that and enjoyed my talk about Super Paper Mario. This has been Super Game Analysis. I will see you next time.
It is estimated that 1 in 5 Americans will develop skin cancer in their lifetime. That is 9,500 people diagnosed every day. Who says that can't be you? Luckily, it's not hard to check for signs yourself. This May for Skin Cancer Awareness Month, do yourself a favor and perform a skin self-exam before it's too late. For more information, visit skincancer.org or at skincancer.org on social media.
Still, lots more to come here on the podcast show on Bergen Bulldog Radio. This is Bergen Bulldog Radio from Bergen Community College on YouTube and Torch TV, Files Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. It's Alyssa again. I'm going to be talking about another manga today that I read. I think this was my first manga I read. This was back in middle school. And honestly, I really liked it so much, so that's why I ventured out more into manga. But it's honestly changed the way I thought about people a little bit. And the manga is called Tokyo Ghoul. Like, if you read this, you already know it's not just some, like, action anime manga situation. This is like identity crisis, trauma, morality, everything all at once. So I'm going to explain it quick, but like in a way that actually makes sense. So we follow this guy, Kaneki. He's very like quiet, shy, kind of awkward. Like he just reads books and like really just minds his business. And then he decides to go on a date with this girl, and she turns out to be a ghoul, which basically means she looks human, but she eats humans. So, yeah, worst date ever. She tries to kill him, but something happens, and he actually survives it. And after this, they literally transplant some of her organs into him. So now he's half human, half ghoul. And from that moment on, his life is it's just over. It's just gone. But here's the thing. That's just like the surface of the story, because what Tokyo Ghoul is really about is not belonging anywhere or feeling like you don't belong. And I feel like that's why it hits so hard, because Kaneki is stuck between two worlds. Humans see him as a monster, ghouls don't fully accept him either, so he's just like existing but never fitting, if that makes sense. And I feel like a lot of people don't realize how real that feeling is. Like, you don't have to be a half ghoul to feel like you don't fully belong somewhere. Sometimes it's like you act one way around certain people and another way somewhere else, and eventually you're just like, wait, which version of me is actually the real version, you know? And Kaneki's character development is like genuinely like insane. Like in the beginning, he's like very soft, very passive. He avoids conflict, which I relate to, because he just wants to keep the peace the entire time. But then everything he goes through, like the pain, the torture, the loss, it literally forces him to change. There's a point where he realizes like being kind isn't enough to survive. And that's when he starts becoming like someone else, like a complete different version. Like he's stronger, colder, and grows more detached from people. And, you know, this part kind of messes with me a little bit, because it makes you think about how much a person can change when they're pushed too far. Like, is he still the same person, or did the world just reshape him into something new? But another thing I love about Tokyo Ghoul is there's no clear, like, good or bad, like, at all. You have humans who are supposed to be right, but in the manga, like, they just do horrible things. And then you have the ghouls who are seen as, like, monsters the entire time, but some of them are really just trying to survive. And it really blurs that line, because it's like, if you're born needing to eat humans to live, would that really make you evil or just alive? And I feel like the story keeps asking that question over and over without ever giving you a clear answer. And also, this story is like painful, like not just physically, emotionally too. Kaneki goes through so much loss. People he cares about, his sense of identity, even his own body. And there's like this constant feeling of isolation. Like even when he's surrounded by people, he's still alone in what he's going through. And I think that's what makes it feel so heavy, because it's not unrealistic pain. It's the kind of pain that feels like quiet. And honestly, the characters, even the side characters, so important. Like, nobody exists just to be there. Everyone has depth. Everyone has motives. Everyone feels real. Even characters like you don't really like at first when we're first introduced to them in the book. Once you understand them, you're like, damn, okay, I see it now. And I just love stories like that, because it forces you to look past surface level judgments. And I think because of this, I feel like Kaneki is my favorite character, because it's not just that I like him, I feel like I understand him. Like, when you first meet Kaneki, he's like very quiet, very soft, you know, he just avoids conflict, just tries to be as peaceful as he possibly can with himself and the people around him. And I feel like that's already something a lot of people can relate to. But then, everything happens to him and his whole life just kind of flips. And what I really like about him is you actually get to see him like change. And not even in a fake way either. Not in a, oh, now he's just strong and cool way. Like how a lot of animes I feel like portray those types of changes. But in a way that like feels real. Because Kaneki didn't want to become the person he became, he was forced to. And I think that's what makes him so interesting, because it makes you think like how much of who we are is actually our choice and how much of it is just what we had to become to survive. And there's this constant thing with him where he's always trying to protect other people, like even if it hurts him. And that part, I think that's what made me also really like him, because it's like he rather suffer himself than let someone else go through it. But at the same time, that's also what like destroys him, because he keeps everything in. He doesn't always say how he feels, he just carries it, and I relate a lot to that. And, eventually it's like, you can't keep doing that forever. Like, it's not healthy in any way, shape, or form for anyone involved. And then, when he changes, when he becomes colder, stronger, it's not just like a glow up or like whatever. It feels like he lost something. Like, yeah, he can survive now, but at what cost? And I think that's why Kaneki stands out to me so much. He represents that feeling of losing parts of yourself just to make it through things. Like, he's still Kaneki, but he's also not the same person anymore. And I feel like that's something people don't talk about enough. So yeah, that's why he's my favorite character. Not because he's the strongest or coolest, but because he feels real. Like, his struggles, his emotions, his changes, they actually all mean something. But also, can we talk about the art for a second? Because the manga art is, like, actually insane. The expressions, the dark tones, the way certain panels are drawn, you can literally feel the emotions. Like, there are moments with no words, and you still understand, like, everything that's happening. And I think that's what makes Tokyo Ghoul stand out the most. Is that, and what I think what makes Tokyo Ghoul stand out the most is that it makes you uncomfortable in a good way. It makes you question, like, what makes someone human. Is it what they are or what they choose to do? And if your circumstances were different, would you still be the same person? Or would you become something else just to survive?
Bergen
Torch TV,
students,
Files
are you
Channel
ready to take the
26
next step
in
towards
Bergen
your
County, New
future?
Jersey.
Join us in the Student Center for 2 exciting events this April.
You're
First,
listening
on
to
Tuesday,
Bergen
April
Bulldog
14th
Radio,
from
the
10 a.m. to
podcast
2 p.m.
show.
Check out
Here
the
on
Spring
YouTube
College
and
Fair.
Files
Meet
Channel
representatives from
26 in
in-state and
Bergen County,
out-of-state
New
colleges
Jersey.
and universities.
And now,
Explore
back to the
transfer
show.
programs, scholarships, and opportunities waiting for
You're
you.
listening to
Then, on
Bergen
Wednesday,
Bulldog
April
Radio,
15th
the
from 10
podcast
a.m. to
show.
1 p.m.
Here on
Don't miss
YouTube
the
and
Spring
Torch
Career
TV,
Fair.
Files
Connect with
Channel
local
26
employers
in
offering
Bergen County, New
internships,
Jersey.
part-time, and
And
full-time
now,
positions.
back to the
Bring your
show.
resume, dress business casual, and get ready to network. For more information, email careercenter@bergen.edu.
The podcast show here on Bergen Bulldog Radio was engineered and edited by Nixon Iscalchi. Our Bulldog mascot is Jameson. The next episodes will air beginning Friday, April 17th, 2026. The executive producer of Bergen Bulldog Radio is Professor Robert Williams. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time on Bergen Bulldog Radio.